everybody, this is Marissa with For the Love of Quilts, and in this video what we're going to be doing is making a pillow out of a knit shirt. And I found a shirt of my mom's. My dad had kept some of her clothes, and I'm making this into a pillow for my sister. She doesn't know about it. It's a surprise. If you know my sister, do not tell her that you saw this. Plus, this is a little test for my sister to see if she watches my videos. So anyway, we are going to get started. Oh, and I just needed to say, I'm not usually this dressed up, and I'm not going to be sewing this dressed up, but I thought I'd go ahead and record the intro on my way to meet my dad at church, and I will change before we get started on the sewing. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is cut up the sides of the shirt, and I'm just gonna kind of cut along the seams. And I want to preserve as much of this as I can so I can put some in a quilt later. So I'm going to cut all the way up underneath the arm. And then just so I don't damage this piece, if I want to use it later, I'm going to cut up the seam where the sleeve is sewed in. But again, the only reason I'm doing this is because I want to preserve as much of the fabric as I can. And then I'm just going to cut across the neck. Okay. And then I'm going to do it on the other side. Going to go across the arm. Carefully clip just a little into the sleeve. And then I'm going to go down till I get to underneath the arm. And then I'm going to go down the other side. I'll spread it out so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. Okay. All right. And I'm going to just put this piece aside. Okay. All right. Now, one thing about this, I'm trying to decide if I know that I want to keep the pocket in it, and I'm trying to decide if I want to keep any of this top. Let me get my t-shirt template and just see. Okay, this is 15.5 by 15.5, and my pillow form is it is 18-inch, so I'm gonna have to cut this to be at least 17.5, probably 18. So this is just to give me an idea. If I do that, the sleeve is gonna be right there. I think in this case, I think I'm just gonna cut the corners like this. I don't think I'm gonna have it, I don't think I want any of that in there. So I'm going to get my straight edge. If you want, you can just draw and cut this with scissors. It does not matter. Oh, one thing, I'll show you a close-up when I'm doing the video, when I'm putting the video together. But this pin, if you can see there's a safety pin there, that was there when the shirt had been washed. There's no telling how many times Mama sewed in this shirt, and when she would sew, she would like stick a pin in her shirt so that she would have it handy, and there was one left right there. So I like to preserve those kind of memories, so that is going to be in the pillow. I'm not going to take that pin out because Mama was the one that put that pin there. I also like either t-shirt or memory quilts that have shirts that have stains. Like there was one that had a softball shirt and some softball pants that were so stained with mud and grass, and I think that makes it better. So I love when things like that stay. So I am going to definitely keep that. All right, well, I'm just going to get a straight edge up here. So what I'm doing is I'm lining this up with the pocket so that I know when I cut, I'm going to have a straight edge. And let me move over so that when I cut, I can go all the way across. So I've got that. And that looks lined up. So I'm gonna hold this really, really tight. Actually, the pen is making it a little wonky, so I'm gonna be careful, keep my hands out of the way. Hold it really tight. Okay. And now, and you can see I've got Mama's trusty, worn out rotary cutter. All right, so this goes away. And now I can lay it down. And I want to go, let's do 17 and a half. No, I'm going to do 18. 18 will get it pretty tight. This kind of fabric you need to not do bigger because I'm not going to stabilize it. It's stretchy and I want the pillow to still, I want to preserve that in the pillow. So I'm not going to try to get rid of that. So if I go 17 inches up, or what did I say, 18? I said 18, didn't I? Okay, so I go 18 inches up, 17, okay, here's 18 inches up. That's gonna put me to the 6. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna move on the side so I can see to line it up properly. Okay, all right. So there's my line. Just double check before you cut that you're in the right place. Okay, so I've got that. And now I'm gonna just move it down and go ahead and cut this off as well. Just line that up and get that out of the way. And sometimes there's enough of that. In this case, there's not. So I have to use the back of the shirt to get the back of the pillow, which is fine. That's what you usually have to do. So I'm gonna flip this back up, right side up, and I'm gonna just make sure it's lined up, it's not stretched. Okay, and now I'm gonna just make a straight edge, and I'm gonna use as much as I can. So I'm gonna go as far as I can this way, making sure it's lined up, kind of keeping it lined up with the pocket as well, and cut that off. All right, so I've almost got my first 19-inch square. I am right-handed, so I like to keep moving things so I can cut on this side. If you're wondering why I keep doing that, that is why I keep doing that. All right, so now I just need to make sure this is not stretched, make sure it's lined up, and get my 19, or my 18. What did I cut that? I cut it 18. Okay, so get my 18. And get my 18, which is lined up on that line right there. And that's it. All right, the front piece is done. I'm just gonna set that aside. I'm gonna get the back. And on this one, I'm just gonna go in a bottom corner so I can preserve as much of this fabric as possible. So I'm just gonna run a straight edge down across the bottom. Okay. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna just go ahead and get a straight edge here as well. Make sure it's lined up. Okay. Let me use my guidelines. Make sure I'm not getting it wonky. Okay. So I've got here and here. Okay. All right. So now I've got a corner. Let me flip it over this way. And if I was just doing this and not videoing it, I would just move myself around the table. I wouldn't do all this flipping. Makes it much harder. But I want you to be able to see it. Okay. All right. So I am going to measure, see if I can get my 18 line here. So that's going to take me, okay, down this way. So it is going to take me to right here. Seems kind of hard to cut through. So now I'm going to just go ahead and finish this corner off. And it's off on the grid, but I don't want it to be off on the fabric. So I'm gonna line it up with the fabric instead of the grid. And now that can be trash. And now this is my square. So let's see. I've got one for lining up. All right, so let me measure again just to make sure. I have to measure a couple times. So that's right here, right there. Okay, and I need to be able to see this line over here, okay? All right, and now I am gonna move around the table on this one. Sometimes it don't catch it. I must have a nick in my blade or something. And let me just make sure my calculation was right. Yep, that's 18. So I'm just gonna line it up with this. Make sure that's right. All right, so now we have the front and the back, and we need to sew those two together. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna pin the right sides together. And if you have a pattern that has a clear right side up, make sure that you do, it might help you to lay it like this. So you can see right side up, so when you flip the pillow over, it doesn't look like it is upside down. This one is kind of random, like this cat and this cat, they're all different ways. So I'm just gonna lay this over. And again, you don't have to pin it. I do sometimes, and sometimes I don't. It depends on the fabric. But if it's something like this, I usually do. If it's stretchy and I haven't ironed a stabilizer, then I usually pin it so it stays with me. But make sure you don't pull it. Just kind of ease it. And I'm just gonna do it every 4 or 5 inches. Okay. And this doesn't have to be precise. One thing you do want to pay attention to though is what's going to be your bottom, because you're going to have to leave a hole on the bottom so you can stuff your pillow in there, and you're going to have to whip that together by hand, and you want to make sure that that's not on the top, because that's going to look a little different than a machine seam. So we do this, and then I'm gonna do a couple here, not too many, because I'm gonna make sure I guide it as I'm sewing it as well. So it doesn't have to be a ton of pins, just enough to hold it for you while you're working. And I'm gonna take this one out of the middle so I remember to leave a hole there. Couple more across the top. And let's just do that. All right. Now we have it pinned together. We're going to move to the sewing machine. Now we're ready to sew. And just because my brain fails me sometimes, I'm going to put a blue pin on the bottom part just to remind me this is the bottom. And how the size of the hole that you leave to put your pillow form through, completely up to you. I would definitely give myself probably 4 inches before I made the turn. So I would start about 4 inches away from the edge, and I always have to hold my thread. If I don't, it just doesn't work. It sucks it back up into the machine. All right, so I'm gonna do a little backwards because that's gonna have some tension on it. That's gonna be where you're stretching it to get your piliform in. So now I took the pin out of the corner and I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna get about 1/4 of an inch from the corner. I'm gonna lift up, I'm gonna turn it, and I'm gonna move the camera a little bit so you can see what I'm sewing. Is that a little better? Yeah, I'll move it this way just a tad. Okay. All right, so now I'm gonna start going here. And remember, as you're sewing, don't pull it. We did not stabilize it. So if you stretch it going through your machine, it's gonna look all stretchy on the sides. If anything, you should ease it towards the machine. But definitely don't stretch it. Okay. I like to take the pins out as I go. You can definitely sew over those if you want to, but if you hit them just the right way, that's gonna probably break your needle. If not, it's gonna damage it, so you don't want to do that. All right, I went a little too far, so I'm gonna back up a stitch and turn it. All right, now here's the pocket, but I have enough here that I shouldn't have a problem getting around that. And there's the pin, so I'm gonna just make sure it's tucked down. And try easing this in, and I'm kind of pushing it to get to the edge as I go. Let me take this pin out. Okay. Just don't want it to stretch. Okay. Sometimes it's a good idea to check and see what's coming out on the other side. Make sure it's looking like you want it to look. One more. Okay. So now we're at this corner and we have one more corner after this one. So gotta put the pressure foot back down. If you don't put that down, you're gonna have a gnarly mess on the underside. And you really only do that a couple times before you start remembering. Make sure it's all lined up. And on this, with this kind of fabric, you do kind of need to go slow or it can make a mess. Okay, last turn. And there, I'm gonna back up on this one. Let me turn. Okay, all right, so I went, that's how far I went on the first end. So I'm gonna go about that far on this side too. And then when I get there, I'm gonna reinforce it because that's gonna stretch. And you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but some people, and sometimes I do, let me pull this out of here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Sometimes once you get it turned inside out and you're getting ready to whip it together, you kind of need a guideline. So sometimes I do this. I make sure I don't do it a complete seam allowance. I just want it as like a little guideline. So I think I'm gonna do that. This is gonna be hidden when I do my seam. I'll show you when I do that, what that looks like. Okay. Now let me get this out. And I'm gonna flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Just see how you can see that guideline? I'm gonna fold it to that point when I sew it together. Okay, so let's do a little guideline here too. And I'm not backing up, I'm not reinforcing it because I may, if I can't hide it, I may want to pull it out. So I want to leave it so that it can be easily pulled out if I needed to. Okay, alrighty. So now we are going to, yeah, see it's already gathering up a little bit because my thread is hung. So I'm gonna get some, let me grab scissors. I'm just gonna clip that, and now it came out. So, all right, so now it's not hung anymore. Okay, so now what I want to do is go around to all the edges, and I'll just make sure you don't, make sure you know where your seam is, but just kind of clip those corners a little bit. Just make sure you don't clip into the seam. This will help it look prettier when you turn it. And notice there's some places that I didn't do such a great job getting it lined up, but that's okay. That's the beauty of sewing. It's okay. You don't have to be a perfectionist. Okay, so let's put this whole thing together. Now I'm going to take the package off of the pillow, and I do not like the tags, so I'm going to carefully cut the tag without cutting into the pillow. And now I'm going to get the bottom of the shirt. This is where we left it open, and flip it inside out. We'll pull these corners and just flip it, and just push the corners with my fingers at first. And then I'm going to take something sharp, but not too sharp. I'm just going to use my scissors, and I'm just going to see if I can gently, you got to do this very gently or you'll push it through. Okay, just gently make the point in each of the corners. Okay. And this one, and this one. Okay, so now we have our pillow. I love Mama's pen right there. Okay, so now here, this pillow form has a zipper in it. I'm not really sure. I guess so you can stuff it more if you want to. I'm not going to. Okay, to get it in there, I usually hold it like this as I'm tucking it so it doesn't put so much pressure on that, but I did reinforce those seams, so it should be okay. And as I ease it in, I try to ease it all the way in before I let go, and then I just kind of ease my hand down there, and then I ease my hand down a little bit more so it's not so much pressure. And then once you get one side in, it's good. Okay, so now all you have to do is just, with these, it's kind of easy. You just kind of pull it around, stretch it around. Okay. Oh, I love this. This is adorable. My sister is going to love this. Love it. Remember, don't tell her. Don't tell her. Don't tell her. I want to see if she watches the video and then comes and says, hey, where's my pillow? All right. So, and I have made them before when there really wasn't enough filling in the corners, and I did just take a handful and stick it up in there. So you can do that if you wanted to. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those seams that I made and fold to where I can't see the seam. And I'm going to take a pin, fold, and I'm going to do it 3 places here. And then on this side, I'm just going to go towards the middle and fold so I can't see the seam. And then I'm just going to pull these two together and use the same pin. And you can adjust as you go. Like I may have gotten too much on one side, but we'll see. So I'm going to fold this down. I stick pins in my mouth. That's why my voice sounds like that. Mama stuck them in her shirt and in her mouth sometimes, but I stick them in my mouth and I have to be careful not to swallow those things. Okay, so that's going to be okay. And I think I may just go ahead and put another one. And go ahead down here. Well, let me make sure that zipper lays flat. Okay. And I'm gonna just pull this together here and pin. And if this doesn't line up exactly, that's okay. You can ease it as you're sewing it together. And that's the part that we're gonna do by hand. Well, I always do it by hand. You can do it on the machine too if you wanted to. For some reason, I just think it looks prettier if you do it by hand. So let me get this one last place. Okay. All right. Well, that looks like it needs pin too. I do like to overpin this just so it lays flat as I'm sewing. And then I'm just gonna do a hand whip stitch right through there, and I'm gonna stop this part of the video and start another part so you can see how to do that. Okay, so I have my needle and thread, and I'm gonna tie a little knot here in the end so it don't come through. And now what I do, see if I can get this in the light, I just kind of hide my knot up in there. Okay. Now I'm just going to do this like a ladder. I'm going to take the pin out so you can see what I'm doing. And I'll put it down so you can actually hear me and I'm not mumbling through with a pin in my mouth. But I take and I go on this side like that, and then I pull it through, and then I go on the other side. I go in exactly straight across and pull it through, and then I go this way and pull it through. And let me show you what that looks like. See if I can get it close so you can see what that ladder looks like. Okay. All right, there's a stray thread there. I'm gonna go past that so it doesn't confuse the issue, but I'll show you once I get to a clean part. And it may be showing up good on the video. I don't know, I just can't tell from the angle I'm at. So let me take out this pin so you can see. Here's the front and the back. Now here's where my thread is coming out. So I'm gonna go straight across, put my needle in here, go over just a little bit, 1/8 of an inch or so, and there's my ladder. So now here's where my thread is coming out. So I'm gonna go across, in, and pull out. So there's my ladder step. So now I'm gonna go across again and out like that. So then when you pull it, it pulls it together, okay? All right, so I am gonna continue and whip this, but I'm not gonna show it as I go. I'm just gonna show you how quick this is. Really, especially if you have that guide seam, it is really, really quick to do this. And my mom always called this a whip stitch. I'm not sure what the technical term is, but like if you have, of course, if you're making pillows, this is what you're gonna use, or you can use, there's different variations, but this is what I used when my daughter was little and Barney had a hole, the seam had come apart, and I had to search everywhere to find Barney purple thread, and I had to do a little whip stitch and sew Barney up because we could not have Barney's stuffing coming out. That was not a good thing. Okay. Almost done. And you don't even have to pull it every time. Okay, I have to make sure I keep track of where my thread was last or we'll have a mess. Okay. And almost there. Just a couple more stitches. Okay. All right, take this pin and, yep, about another 1.5 inches. And this is actually what you would, the same way you would do a t-shirt. I am going to do another video that shows you how to do a t-shirt if you want to put stabilizer on it. That's just going to make the pillow a little firmer, not firmer, that's not what, the fabric part is going to be firmer, so it's not going to be as soft and cuddly. And I wanted this one to be soft and cuddly, so I didn't want to do the stabilizer. And it's fine, you just have to be careful when you're sewing that you don't stretch it. And it's, but on something like this or on a t-shirt, it's fine to do it without stabilizing it. I do stabilize every time I make a quilt out of something like this because it is just a nightmare sewing it all together. But for something like this, okay, I'm at the end. And on this, you can do it however you want to do it. What you're doing is you're just hiding the seam. I like to make a little circle and then just put my thread through so it makes a knot. And I do that a couple of times just so it's not going to come out. And then I just stick my needle in somewhere and I'll just poke it way far over, and then I pull my needle out and just trim it off and fluff it up. And there's a pillow for my sister out of my mom's shirt with the pin that she put on it. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something, and I hope that you go and make a pillow out of a knit shirt and give it to somebody that you love. And I hope my sister loves this pillow. We shall see. But if you like this video, I would like for you to like, I would like for you to subscribe, and I would like for you to tell all of your friends. And most of all, I want you to have a great day full of hope and happy.